No one in the America's Got Talent audience truly expected anything extraordinary that night. The stage lights glowed softly, the judges sat casually, and the crowd buzzed with the usual anticipation of another contestant walking out. Then, a young Filipino kid stepped onto the stage, small, humble, and visibly nervous. He wasn't wearing anything flashy, no dramatic costume, no big entrance. Just a simple smile and eyes full of hope. Simon Cowell leaned back in his chair, almost as if preparing for something ordinary. Howie Mandel tilted his head curiously. Sofia Vergara whispered, "He's so young." The boy introduced himself quietly, his voice barely louder than the microphone. He said he came from the Philippines, and singing was his dream. The audience clapped politely, supportive but not yet amazed. It felt like one of those moments where people were kind because he was a child, not because they expected greatness. But deep down, something about him felt different. The calmness in his posture, the way he held the mic, the quiet confidence behind the nervousness. It was as if he carried a secret inside him. And no one, not even the judges, could have imagined what was about to happen next. Simon asked the usual question. "So what are you going to sing for us today?" The boy paused for a moment, then answered softly, "I'm going to sing Elvis Presley." The room shifted instantly. Some audience members chuckled. Others raised their eyebrows. "Elvis? From this kid?" Simon's face showed a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Howie smiled as if expecting something fun or maybe even a cute impersonation. Sophia looked amused, and even the band seemed surprised. Elvis Presley is not an easy artist to sing. His voice is legendary, deep, rich, iconic. Many grown singers fail to capture even a fraction of his sound. A child attempting, it seemed almost impossible. The crowd murmured, unsure whether this would be impressive or embarrassing. Simon leaned forward slightly, watching closely. "All right," he said, "let's hear it." The music began, those classic Elvis-style instrumentals filling the theater. The boy took a deep breath. For a split second, time froze. And then he opened his mouth. The very first note sent a shockwave through the room. The sound that came out of him didn't belong to a child. It didn't even feel real. It was as if Elvis Presley himself had somehow stepped into that small body and was singing through him. The voice was powerful, smooth, and hauntingly accurate. Gasps erupted instantly. People's mouths fell open. The audience froze, then exploded into screams. Simon's eyes widened like he'd just seen a ghost. Sophia shot up from her seat, shouting, "Oh my God!" Howie's jaw dropped completely. The kid wasn't doing a parody. He wasn't doing an impression. He was channeling something almost supernatural. Every note carried that unmistakable Elvis tone, the vibrato, the soulful depth, the effortless charisma. The theater transformed into something bigger than a talent show audition. It became a moment of history. People looked at each other in disbelief, asking silently, "Is this real?" The boy stood steady, eyes focused, voice soaring through the arena. It wasn't just talent, it was destiny unfolding live. The crowd couldn't breathe. They weren't watching a kid anymore. They were watching an icon reborn in the most unexpected way possible. Halfway through the performance, the judges were no longer judging. They were witnessing. Simon Cowell, known for his brutal honesty and impossible standards, looked genuinely shaken. His expression wasn't critical. It was stunned admiration. Sophia had her hands over her mouth, tears forming in her eyes. Howie kept shaking his head like he couldn't process what was happening. Even the cameraman seemed caught off guard, zooming in quickly on the judges' reactions, because this was beyond normal television. The boy hit a note so perfectly, so emotionally, that the audience erupted into a standing ovation before the song even ended. People were screaming his name. Some were crying. It was one of those rare performances that didn't feel rehearsed or manufactured. It felt pure, raw, and once in a lifetime. Simon whispered under his breath, "This is unbelievable." The kid moved slightly, adding just a hint of Elvis-style stage presence, not forced, but natural. The confidence grew with every lyric. By the final chorus, the entire theater was on its feet, clapping in rhythm, screaming like they were at an Elvis concert in the 1960s. The kid wasn't just singing. He was commanding the room. As the song reached its climax, the boy closed his eyes and delivered the final note with such strength and control that it echoed through the auditorium like thunder. Silence followed for half a second, the kind of silence that happens when people are too stunned to react. And then the place exploded. The loudest applause of the night shook the theater. People were jumping, shouting, crying, unable to believe what they had just heard. Simon stood up slowly, clapping with a look of disbelief that almost turned into emotion. Sophia was yelling, "That was insane." Howie shouted, "You are not real." The kid smiled shyly, almost surprised by the reaction, like he didn't fully realize the magic he had just unleashed. The judges looked at each other as if silently agreeing. This wasn't just a good audition. This was one of those legendary AGT moments that people would replay for years. The kind of audition that breaks the internet, that makes headlines worldwide, that reminds everyone why talent exists. The boy had walked in as a nobody, but in just 2 minutes, he became unforgettable. When the judges finally spoke, Simon took the microphone first. He paused, searching for words. "I have seen thousands of singers," he said, "and I can honestly tell you, I have never heard anything like that in my life." The audience roared again. Sophia told him, "You are a miracle." Howie called it the most shocking voice ever on this stage. The kid stood there, tears in his eyes now, overwhelmed by the love pouring toward him. He explained that he grew up watching Elvis videos, dreaming of singing like him, practicing every day in a small home far away from America. And now, that dream had carried him across the world onto the biggest stage imaginable. In that moment, it wasn't just about Elvis or imitation. It was about hope, talent, and the unbelievable power of music. The Filipino kid had proven that greatness can come from anywhere, from the most unexpected places, in the smallest packages. And as the cameras captured the roaring crowd, the judges standing, and the boy smiling through tears, one thing became clear. No one saw it coming, but the world would never forget it.